Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. We do apologize for the late start for the program this morning, but at the same time, life is live and we hope to make it up to you. My name is Dike Rostant. Welcome again to the program. But a well-informed public opinion is essential to the growth of political and social awareness. Words of His Imperial Majesty Haile Selassie, and his birthday would have been Saturday gone on the 23rd. Now, to continue with that train of thought and to speak about GATE and GATE-related issues, we have some students from the UWI, the University of the West Indies, and we say good morning to them. And when we call your name, can you just acknowledge? Thank you. So, Reagan Gibbings.
Hi.
Whitney Matthews.
Hi, everyone.
Tesfa Billy. Clevon Oliver. And these students thus far from the UWI Socialist Students Conference. We also have Riet Rollins.
Good morning.
Joshua Hamlet.
Morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Selon Ploden.
Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Crystal Timul.
Good morning.
And Tyrone Ocho.
Good morning.
So while you're all answering, you're going to be sharing the mic around, right? Okay. But at the same time, once again, you want to say welcome. And Reagan, because you have the mic, we start off with you. So we want to break this up into about three segments in terms of like before UWI, during UWI, after UWI, because naturally we're limited by the fact, we can focus on UWI because all UWI students. What are some of the considerations that go into actually going to the UWI?
Okay, firstly, you have to understand your financial status. Okay, whether you'll need a student loan, if your parents are able, if you have to do it on your own, you have to consider the cost of books, transportation, if you need accommodation. All these things are vital and essential in deciding whether, okay, I got accepted into UWI, so what's my next step?
And so, Whitney, as you right next to her, we want to ask you, thank you. Some people say UWI. Some people might call other names. Why did you go to UWI specifically as a tertiary institution?
Well, me personally, I wanted to attend UWI to expand my thought, basically, to not just be educated and to get a tertiary education, to get a job, but, you know, to become a critical thinker, to, you know, think outside the box, be more innovative, learn new things outside of, you know, the customary, you know, business degrees and lawyer degrees, doctor degrees, you know, and get more into social activism. That was my purpose in going UWI.
All right, so we'll pass it on to Selon at the same time. Thank you.
Hello, yes. I'm a particular case. I actually went away and did a first degree, and I came back and chose UWI. UWI has a pretty high standard of education, believe it or not. I could compare. I came back here and I find it's even more difficult here at UWI. And I had a hard time. I studied in Europe, so it's a pretty high standard of education. That's why I chose it, and yeah.
Is there anyone who actually wrote SATs?
I did.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm wondering whether or not anyone wrote SATs but decided to go to UWI.
Oh, no. I wrote SATs and decided to go to Europe. Yes. Okay. I just did it as a backup.
Now, some people, they talk about they don't necessarily want to go that far from family. Reagan, you pointed out that one of the things that people need to look at is financial considerations. You can continue, thank you. I'm wondering, what kind of prices are we thinking about when we say UWI and school fees? Okay, well, I guess back to Reagan, thank you.
Okay, speaking for myself, someone who resides at home, all I have to really consider is the cost of books, transportation, and food. For someone who is renting or staying on hall, I don't know if anyone wants to speak for that cause.
And we can pass it around everybody.
Well, good morning again, Trinidad and Tobago. And well, for me, being from South and the traveling to come to classes every day would be a bit tedious, so I decided to rent alongside with my brother. Well, he's not able to be here today, but all the fees taken into consideration is come up to a pretty kind of high lump sum, because then you have to take into consideration, you have to pay rent, and then you have to buy groceries, which will last about a month between my brother and myself. And then you have to look at factors like books and photocopies and all that for doing assignments. So all these prices, again, add up at the end of it all.
Right. If Gate wasn't in the picture, what would the considerations be like with regard to the financials?
At least for me, what I can say, if Gate wasn't a consideration for my financial situation, I think it would have either mean that I enter into the workplace in probably an entry-level position, and I probably work for like about 3 years, and then I choose a degree either based on what my career point would have been after those 3 years, or probably based on my dreams. But what I want to say is that even though that was a possibility, the idea of Gate is to give people the opportunity to follow their dreams easier. And that is something that Trinidad and Tobago needs to be built on.
But that actually raises the point, though. Coming right out of school, some people out of mommy and daddy house, what are your dreams? Or those 3 years you spoke about in the work world, and possibly can have someone else answer, but having that experience in the work world, many times that can whittle down what it is you want to do. Not necessarily choices, but help define your dream a little more. What do you think about that?
I think work experience, good morning. I think work experience can definitely aid in shaping the way we imagine ourselves and imagine our capabilities. I think it allows for us to consider the fact that we can be a lot more than a clerk or a secretary, not of course discounting these positions and people who operate in such capacities, but you now have the opportunity with a government funded program that allows for us to go to tertiary level education institutions and engage with different programs, different individuals, because it's, as much as it's an educative kind of environment, it allows for social, cultural expansion.
How important, possibly Cleven could start, how important is that cultural aspect? Because many people just say, I'm just here, I'm reaching to school, I get him a degree, and I'm going on to do whatever else. But in terms of being that holistic kind of student and getting that all-rounded kind of training, how important is that to you?
Being able to dive into the richness of both history and culture at the university. When I first started as a student, I was fresh, right? So I wasn't too familiar with the implications in actually becoming a focused student. So for my first 2 years, I played a little bit of my degree, and I suffered for it, right? But in the latter 2 years, I speaking to agricultural extension officers, speaking to past lecturers, and as well as interacting with the people from different degrees, from different faculties. It showed me that the Gate itself was not so much as a privilege, it was a necessity. And this is something that we need as students, to be able to reach our hands into the proverbial cookie jar and get a little taste of the sweets inside. That's the answer.
I know. I see you nodding your head when you said it's a necessity. But in terms of, no, we actually passed it this way to the young man, thanks. And I see you nodding your head when you say it's a necessity. Why?
It kind of relates to the previous questions you asked about why enter into the, sorry, good morning, why you enter into the university. And my take on that is that I actually was considering going into the working world from secondary school education, but my parents thought it was a good investment to further my education into tertiary. And I was privileged enough to live on the hall, the dormitory of Milner Hall, which was close to the university campus, and that exposed me to a lot of foreign culture, and it gave me a more diverse outlook of life and stuff. And I think everybody deserves to have experience, not just with foreign exchange students, but with everybody coming from all parts of Trinidad, because we usually are segregated by, geography in Trinidad, East people, North people, South people, Central people. So I have some, what do you call it? Instead of individual kind of experience is a holistic kind of country, because I feel like if in my country when I'm in UWI, rather than just being in an isolated spot and calling it a South man. You know, understand? I went to Trinidad, you know, funded institution, and I feel proud to be part of that holistic experience.
All right, so we actually scooping ourselves to Crystal because Crystal has not spoken as yet. So while the microphone is going to you, I want to ask what your UE experience has been thus far.
My UE experience has been very interesting. My first year, you know, I am from South, so adjusting to life on campus and, you know, trying to be independent and still be a student at the same time because, you know, no mommy to cook for you when you want. So it was very interesting. My second year, I thought it would have been easier, but it wasn't. You miss home more. But all in all, there's a motivation that guides you when you know that your country invests in your education and as well that you have like family supporting you. There's motivation to continue.
All right, no, I'm just tossing it out because everyone has spoken already, but I'm wondering what is the importance, because you spoke to it in terms of having that kind of integration and that regional kind of vibe and thrust. You also spoke to having a mix and making sure that people from different parts of the country are able to interact. How important is that interaction, both on a national and a regional level?
Okay, for me, being at UE, I was exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of people, and I got to understand persons. You know, we have these ideologies and misconceptions of different cultures, and when you actually sit and reason with the person, you get to understand, okay, this person is just like me, and we are here for the same cause. And we are here to get this education, and we know we look at education as just being solely academics, but this holistic concept of education is important because you get to learn different cultures, different ways to interact with people. You build networking, you join groups like this to help fight a cause. So that's important.
But let me know how the GATE program works in terms of, is the money paid at the beginning of the semester?
Okay, GATE is offered to citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. You have to be here for 3 years, living here for 3 years. And it covers 100% for undergraduates and 50% for postgraduate students. And when you apply online, you await clearance and they cover the cost of your tuition for your first semester. You apply again for your second semester, and so it goes.
And speak, please.
Yeah, so to add to what Regan was saying, it's not ever that students interface with funds directly. Like, we never touch GATE currency. You know, you send in your application at the beginning of each semester within the academic year, and the institution, on the behalf of the students, would allot the funds, depending, of course, on the degree program, the level of study, whether at undergraduate or postgraduate level. Okay. Yeah, just for clarification.
Definitely. How many people in undergrad? How many people in Okay, every
postgrad student.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, right.
What are you thinking about right now? Thinking about being a prospective postgrad with GATE and without GATE?
Well, there is definitely a lot of anxiety as it regards where GATE stands now and where the debate is at, because it is proposed that a third of the tuition cost for undergraduate degrees be paid by the students, and the rest would be funded by the government, as well as 100% coverage by the student for postgraduate study. Now, the program I wish to do, which is the MSc in Gender and Development Studies, while it is one of the less expensive courses offered at the postgrad level, it is still quite expensive when, in terms of looking at my household and the incomes that, you know, have to negotiate schools for myself as well as my little sister who is going into Form 2, in terms of transportation, food, you know, general cost of living expenses. And it's not that I view GATE as this welfare initiative by the government, but I think it absolutely critical and urgent that they funnel money into students who are interested in doing research within various fields, because gender and development studies, I think, is quite necessary within the 21st century, and we have made a lot of strides. And similarly for other degree programs, postgraduate as well as undergraduate.
All right, so we take a break, we come back with so much more. We actually want to talk about what is the responsibility of the student who is on GATE or is benefiting from the GATE program. When we return, stay tuned. Good morning. Trinidad and Tobago comes back after this. Welcome back to Good Morning Trinidad and Tobago. We are talking to UWI students. We're talking about UWI in general, their interaction with UWI and how GATE comes into play with all of that. Now, we just spoke about the fact that you have different things to think about with regard to GATE and partial funding going into your postgraduate, we're claiming it, going back into a postgraduate degree. But at the same time, after undergrad, what are some of the ramifications in terms of paying back that GATE funding? Is it something that you think about? Is it something that, is there a plan, a structured plan? How does it happen?
Well, I think I would like to speak on this one because I actually got to finish my degree under the GATE program. GATE and students acknowledge this. GATE is a legally binding contract between the individual and the state. You have the choice to do tertiary education without GATE. Every national has that choice. After you're finished with your degree, the GATE contract stipulates under certain amounts that it has spent on your program, how much years of national service you have to do. They define this national service as employment either in the public or private sector. So once again, students don't really have a clear responsibility to pay back directly, say, into a slush GATE fund. But by just working and committing to work in our country and develop our country, afterwards we contribute back and we say thank you very much for spending on our education with GATE.
All right, so you said that you can speak to it specifically because you're happy to be finished after being funded by GATE, but how many years are you supposed to pay back?
Well, currently right now, I believe GATE has, I am in between, I believe there's a range between 100,000 and 150,000, and I fall within that range, so I have to give back about 3 years of national service. I do plan to give back more because I believe my nation definitely deserves my expertise. So that's where I have to say to myself that afterwards I have 3 years to commit myself to Trinidad and Tobago.
From what you all know and from what you all hear, is that the general kind of feeling? Because I'm wondering whether or not people, okay, I've gotten my degree, but at the same time, people aren't really looking at me to pay back that amount of time in service. So do you find people leaving? Do you find people paying back that time?
I think students need to be reminded that getting access to GATE, you should know that on leaving university, you have a social responsibility to contribute to our economy and our society. We may be working or doing some sort of activism work, putting in work to better the communities, the society holistically. I mean, when you get your degree, you're not sitting down on the knowledge you get. And it's not just to work hard and be a good worker, it's to be a good citizen, to think critically, to think academically, and, to voice your opinion. If you are an educated individual, whether a young student just fresh out of university or someone who went to university just to better their career, you are doing something for our country's development. And you just have to keep that in mind. They paid for you to come to this institution. You're not just working to, repay debt. You're working for the society. So every decision you make, everything you do is for our country. Okay?
Well, how easy is it to be that good citizen when you finish your degree, you did your part, you came out with first class honors, but at the same time, there isn't a ready slot to fit into?
Okay, well, I'm saying that, I was thinking that as students, we've benefited from GATE. I want to say it's our responsibility to look and see, well, this is what's lacking in our society. This is what is needed. It's my duty, along with others, to try to develop, I guess, the industries that need to be here. Everybody can't be a doctor, a lawyer, this, or that. There are things that are lacking. There are things you could think of that could use your expertise, and you go out there and you do what it is, because it's a lot of us benefiting from GATE, and I guess the economy can't give every one of us a job. So need to be, I guess, creative.
Okay, so that brings me to the point though. How relevant is, well, I'll say UWI because everyone here is a UWI student. How relevant is UWI in terms of preparing people for the working world, either as a good employee or as someone who is thinking along entrepreneurial lines? Because I'm in school and I see this need, so UWI can help me towards getting better so I can fill that need. How relevant is UWI with regard to that?
Thank you. I can't speak for all faculties. I can only speak for mine own. But in terms of the opportunities for, like I say, entrepreneurs or for work after school, it's strange in the sense that I've been working for the entire time I've been at UWI, and as my friend Joshua was saying, Gate caters for part-time students in the sense that you're not while you work and go to school, that counts as you paying back for your degree. You understand? So, but however, I'll say this: when it is you leave and there is no job, no slot for you to fit in, as in the market is saturated, where you have secondary school students leaving and filling up the job in which you were supposed to get. What are you to do? You know, now you're faced with the choice: free tuition or eating and living. You understand? So that is, as a farmer, somebody now coming out of UWI and looking to make my name, it's difficult because I don't have access, as a farmer, I don't have access to land, I don't have access to resources, I don't have any money. So yeah, it's either that, free education, or, you know, pay to eat.
Is there a middle road? Because I know, like you said, Clevon, you worked and going to school at the same time, but are there anything on the campus that, in terms of internships, on the job training, that happens simultaneously with regard to schooling?
If there is, it's on an extremely part-time basis for that summer only. There are establishments on campus that could provide part-time jobs for students in a more flexible manner, but those job positions are often taken by off-campus people who, for example, people who work in a 9 to 5 that the UWI student just can't do. Okay,
were you going to answer that?
In addition to what Clevon is saying, there's also a very professionally organized system whereby at the end of your university program, there is this, how do you say, indoctrination seminar, a series of lectures that we are invited to, called the World of Work seminar, where, you know, we are encouraged and shown how to write accurate resumes, how to submit. You can submit to your faculty and then they send it out to different employers on your behalf. Also, they invite various companies, ministries, different organizations to come, and there is a, how do you say, career day, and you have the opportunity to be employed in that way. So I think UWI, they try to allow for a an easy transition into the workforce after your degree is completed. Whether or not you get the job is the question. And that, of course, would be due to the saturation in the market, whether or not jobs are available as it regards, well, our current economic system.
That's for Crystal. How important is it to be a member of groups while on the campus? Because some people think it's just school, and some people are talking about building a holistic individual who has other pursuits. How important is it to be part of much more than just school?
Well, it's very important because, I mean, going into UWI, you're going with this idea that you just go in and you focus on your degree that you're pursuing, and that's just it, and that's the end road. You get the degree, you get out, you go to the world of work. But then when you enter campus, it's a whole different environment. It's how to interact with all these other individuals from not just Trinidad, but regionally and also internationally. So it's very important to become part of groups so you can understand others, you can get a holistic feel of different cultures, and you can become involved in much more. Like, for example, the UWI Socialist Student Conference, where this group, we fight for many things. We had the books, Not That seminar and all that. You know, and it just expands the learning experience and expands your experience even more, and it helps build you not as a productive individual in society economically, but also you'll be able to take others and pave the way for the next generation to come.
All right, speaking of the next generation, Crystal, knowing what you know now, what would you tell someone who's asking you about, should I go to UWI?
Yes, I think I will advise people to go to UWI, but just be prepared for it. It is not as easy as people make it seem. It is, you have to form groups. You have to have that support system up here, especially if you're from South, because you don't have family to go home to and say, you know, today was hard. You need that support system. It's very important to form groups. But people, like, we find our way around it. You know, we socialize, we get into our little groups based on our programs. And while on campus, you'll be surprised to know that students we actually sit together from different faculties and have a discussion. So I would advise people to come to University of the West Indies because you get a holistic experience.
Now, speaking of that holistic experience, I love the fact that you mentioned having conversations, progressive conversations outside of class time. How is the UWI with regard to actually building critical thinkers? Because I've had a knock of people have told me sometimes, UWI students, they're bright, but at the same time, if I take them and they learned A, and I want them to take that knowledge and apply it to B, it's a bit problematic sometimes. Things like that critical aspect and having those conversations moving forward. How is it?
Well, this is why I think joining groups is important. You see, our group, UWI SSC, we are like activists in training. We are learning how to mobilize, organize events, coordinate different things. So dealing with issues like this, how to put it together to get a public response, this is exactly what we engage in, having critical discussions, arguments, debates. And outside of that, in UWI, what you're learning in academics, you're learning how to write essays, you know, how to do papers, thesis, everything. So all I say as a student is everything that we learn, we should use it outside of school when we leave. And I'm not saying that, you know, we should just go and work hard for the country to better the economy. But you write articles in the papers, you critique the government, you form an opinion, you know, you get your voice out there. You're not just sticking to the normal narrative, okay?
What I have observed, if you were to take 10 students and ask them, why are you at UWI and why do you want to pass your course? More than half will say, my parents don't have money to pay back for this course, to pay back it. I don't have money for summer school. So therein we see the importance of how GATE is essential. You see that we need GATE to continue through our tertiary education. And for students who want to start UWI, there's a pressure on them from the start that you need to pass all your courses. You need to pass. So incorporating all these views, we understand that yes, academics is essential, but you also need to grow from what you're studying, not just wanting to pass or get a degree and leave.
All right, so I'll take your final comment and then we move forward.
Okay, just to build on the idea of groups and the importance of it, I think now would be a fitting time to welcome any other youth organization, any other youth leader within, or youth leaders, ambassadors within Trinidad and Tobago, just to join the cause and champion for GATE and the absolute necessity that it has become to fight for 100% tuition funding at an undergraduate level and 50% at the postgraduate level of study. Because it is only through, I think, consolidation and a strong coalition of youth and young people within Trinidad and Tobago, students particularly, can I see this cause being considered and being seen as very serious. You know, the youth voice as necessary and capable of impacting change.
All right, so we want to thank you all so much for actually coming and articulating your views. We want to thank Mr. Amilcar Sanatan and Aruna Jagasa, who came before with him. And this has been a conversation on GATE. We have news at the top of the hour. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago continues after this.